This video quotes Plato, Aristotle, Jaspers, and Deleuze, but the ideas of many other philosophers are also present. When we consider philosophy and wonder about its nature, we will soon realize there is no official definition. Indeed, the question, "What is philosophy?" has many different answers, but none is considered to be the definitive one. In fact, to wonder about philosophy and to try to answer this very question is to philosophize. And this is a distinctive characteristic of philosophy, as opposed to other subjects. For example, when we try to define physics, we don't necessarily operate as a physicist. In contrast, to consider the nature and origins of philosophy is itself philosophical work, and to understand that better it's worth examining its official beginnings. Etymologically, the word philosophy comes from Greek and roughly translates as love of wisdom. According to tradition, the word philosopher was first used by Pythagoras to contrast it with Sophos, the sage, the one who has knowledge. A philosopher, on the other hand, is one who wants knowledge, who seeks wisdom. Philosophy comes from this predisposition towards knowledge. It has often been pointed out that the way philosophy was born provides a model for answering this question. In fact, philosophy is more a how than a what. In its more genuine meaning, it refers to a way of doing, a predisposition, an attitude. The key is to see which elements form this attitude, such as Plato and Aristotle indicated that philosophy begins with astonishment, perplexity, or admiration towards what surrounds us. This feeling contains the awareness of one's own ignorance, and that's what drives us to seek knowledge. In what way? Precisely through questions. Philosophy is born from the question, from interrogation, and this is an interrogation of everything, an interrogation that genuinely intends to reach the foundations of everything. It is an absolute and radical questioning. For this to happen, we often need to cast doubt on acquired knowledge and submit it to critical examination. In fact, what we call Western philosophy is an examination, a constant discussion about some of the fundamental questions raised by the first Greek philosophers. Ancient Greeks started an itinerary of questions and answers. They began a dialogue that still stands. However, Western philosophy is a path in philosophy. Philosophy as such goes beyond the theories of the philosophical tradition. According to Jaspers, philosophy is the principle of concentration through which man becomes himself by partaking of reality. In this respect, philosophy is a basic dimension of humankind, and it is found everywhere, in dominant convictions, in proverbs, in myths, etc. Broadly speaking, these are the most important elements of philosophy. However, nowadays, this kind of answer is not considered enough, because the need to comprehend philosophy is linked to another question. What is philosophy for? This question usually refers to two aspects. The first and most common one relates to its utility, in a very specific sense. What's philosophy for is equivalent to, what does philosophy give us? What kind of benefits does philosophy give us? This kind of question expects an answer like, philosophy is useful to repair shoes, to calm a headache, or to forecast the weather. In that sense, it's important to note that philosophy is basically useless, because it's not an instrument. It's even considered that it stops being philosophy the moment we try to instrumentalize it. But if we broaden the scope of the question and look for a more generic utility that does not focus on benefits, we will easily find practical uses for it. Philosophy can be useful for many things, and it's especially good at pointing out that this type of question is not neutral and hides prejudices. Which ones? For example, societies need to turn this type of utility into a supreme value. Or the idea that the market decides what is valuable or not, what is important or not. And it's precisely because of this that we can see the other meaning of the question. Because to ask what philosophy is for means to also ask about its importance. Why is philosophy important? Earlier we mentioned that philosophy is present everywhere, and that means that as much as we try to escape it, philosophy is unavoidable. In this sense, everybody philosophizes, because we have an attitude towards life and the reality that surrounds us. The key is to see if we are aware of it or not, if we have reached this attitude consciously and in an autonomous, reflective and critical manner, or if, on the contrary, we have accepted what has been given to us without questioning anything. Insofar as we value our humanity, philosophy is important because it is in our nature. But beyond that, a conscious and active philosophy is even more meaningful because it keeps us awake, it makes us aware of what we ignore, and invites us to think about our own beliefs. In short, it makes us think for ourselves. This can be hard work. Deleuze said that philosophy saddens us, because it makes us aware of the baseness of thought, of the shameful side of the world we live in. But at the same time, philosophy makes us free beings. And in this sense, philosophy is not only important, but necessary.